Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever, wherever you're listening from. This is episode 4 of the death and dying process, the actively dying to the afterlife to reincarnation and back again. So today's episode is discussing all things regarding reincarnation. If you have any questions for me in any way regarding the death and dying process, whether it's the reincarnation part, whether it's the afterlife, whether it's the actively dying portion, whatever, if you have any of those questions, please feel free to ask them in the comments and I'll get back to you and potentially and hopefully answer those questions for you in the following videos. And if I get enough likes and I get enough interest, I will make weekly videos on the death and dying process and reincarnation and spirituality. So the perspectives you're hearing from these videos is from the perspective of a medium as well as a death doula. So, let's get started. While we're at it, let's answer 5 questions regarding reincarnation. What is reincarnation, and is it even real? Is there science behind it? Do we remember our past lives? And am I always going to come back as a human? And finally, today's episode, we're going to talk about, am I always going to come back at all? So, what is reincarnation and is it even real? So, is a reincarnation real? Yes, it is absolutely real. And so, believing in it and knowing it's real are two very different things. You don't have to believe in it, but it is real. It doesn't change the fact, it doesn't negate the fact that it is a real experience. Most of us will come back. Um, and all of us have come back several times, or most of us have come back several times. So, what is it? Reincarnation is simply going through a soul contract, which is just a contract when you're on the other side, when you're in the spiritual world, spiritual side, there's no veil. You are gonna go through things on what lessons did you want to learn in this life? What lessons have you learned in other lives? And what lessons do you want to learn in this life? So, regardless of the fact that we often say, I never pick this, I would never choose something like this, etc. Well, for the most part, we did. There are some things, once we return to the earth, there is free will. So some things change within our soul contract, but the lessons that we choose are the same. The lessons that we chose are lessons that we actually chose to learn from. Um, so, that being said, once your soul contract has been written and you've reviewed it and you're in agreement and everyone else around you that is going to be a part of your life is in agreement and is understanding of what's going on, you are returned to the earth. You're returned to a child and to a baby, and the life process begins, or you're reincarnated into something else, as is discussed later on. Um, so that being said, is there really even any science behind it? Yes, there is a growing desire to learn more about reincarnation. So there are many scientists, psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors, neurosurgeons, neurologists, etc., that are starting to become very interested in this subject and starting to do their thesis on this, etc. I won't cite anything right now, but to give a fair reading, you read who you feel comfortable with. You read what you feel you want to see. But a good Google search will give you some notes and some research papers, etc., on this subject. So if you're interested, you can look at that. So do we remember our past lives? Yes, we absolutely remember our past lives. Some of us do, some of us don't. As adults, we don't always remember it. Past the age of 5, we don't always remember, but some people do. Because again, it's part of our soul contract. Some of our soul contract is, are we going to be spiritually aware and spiritually awake in this life? Or are we going to learn from a different aspect of it? So some of us do, some of us don't. Let's talk about children for a bit. So kids, I challenge you to listen to what they're saying before the age of 5. Listen to some of the stories that they tell. Some of the stories that they tell, they're super far fetched to us. I know, and it can seem comical, and we just think, oh wow, or my kid has such a huge imagination, vivid imagination. Um, you don't think that it's real just because how would they even know this, right? They're 4 or 5 years old. They don't understand this stuff, but they actually do. They are an age where there is no veil between this life and the spirit world. And there is no ego because we don't teach kids that. We don't teach kids that, for example, Halloween. We're leading up to the Halloween season right now. I'm making these videos because of the Halloween season to help dispel some of those myths and some of those fears around it. So leading up to Halloween, children are taught when we start school, we're taught that ghouls and vampires and ghosts and zombies and etc. they don't exist. So ghosts are involved in that subgroup of Halloween and things to fear and things that aren't real. So we're taught, and it's not because we're not taught that purposely. We're not taught that to purposely forget lives and to not believe in ghosts, etc. It's it's just part of our culture. It's part of life. It's part of who we are as growing up. So kids are always taught from 5 years old on that it's wrong and you don't believe in it. So we stop believing in it. We stop thinking about it because they're social constructs. But before that time, you'll hear stories from kids, like especially even right now. There's still kids coming back that are remembering their past lives from accidents like the Titanic, tragedies like the Titanic, and other tragedies that we've seen in this world in our lifetimes and previous lifetimes. Listen to those stories. If there could be certain clues within their stories that you can even research today and possibly find what exactly happened to them sometimes. So, for example, in this example of Titanic, there was one child that remembered everything about the boiler room. He explained the boiler room to a T. So that child had another life. In that other life, they were in on the Titanic when it sank. It seems far fetched. It seems crazy. It seems silly. But these things do happen because there is no ego. They haven't learned to lie. They haven't learned to hide what they're seeing or hide what they're saying. So oftentimes, and it's the same thing, but when you look at imaginary friends, oftentimes children's imaginary friends are actually just spirits that they're speaking to because there is no ego, there is no veil. So yes, children remember their past lives, and some adults remember their past lives if it was meant to be. So leading to that, am I always going to come back as a human? Not necessarily. So when you think about the physics perspective and biology perspective, everything in the science world, so everything is matter, everything is energy. There are neurons, protons, everything like that. We're matter, we're energy, we are mass. So there's not there's physical differences and there are biological differences, obviously, between humans and animals, and other animals rather, and plant material and rocks and water, etc. However, we all complement each other. We wouldn't be able to survive on this earth without water. We wouldn't be able to survive on this earth without trees. We wouldn't be able to survive on this earth without part of the ecosystem that we currently have. It just wouldn't work. So sometimes you will come back as other things because you're meant to learn those lessons. You can't learn what it's like to be a mushroom and the mycelium, um, the network of nerves and communication, etc., that are within the mushroom subsystem while being a human. We can research it, we can study it, we can put it under a petri dish and examine it, but we're not going to truly understand fully the um, the behind the scenes of being a mushroom. So yes, sometimes we're going to come back as different things that we're meant to learn. That seems far fetched and that seems crazy and silly, and I get it. It totally does, but it's a reality. So no, you're not always going to come back as a human. You even can come back as pets, a cat or dog, etc. You learn different lessons. So you're going to come back in whatever lesson that you need to learn. And then that leads to our final question: am I going to even come back at all? So, if you've learned everything you need to learn, no, you won't. But for the most part, and it's your choice, you don't have to. See, coming back to this earth really was a choice. We all made that choice. We all made that contract, that choice to sign the contract and come back and to live our life. And our lessons don't necessarily mean that we're learning a specific lesson. We could be coming back to teach somebody else a specific lesson. So, for example, a silly example, I might come back as a highly intelligent person with an IQ of 160. And I may be here coming into this earth to teach people how to do a certain thing that I am competent in. For example, I might be here to teach somebody else a lesson um, the in how the brain works, and that might help them save their life down the road, just weird things I don't. It's just we're here to teach lessons, and we're here to learn lessons. So it's not exactly always about learning; it's also about teaching lessons. Um, so yeah, that's are we going to come back? If you don't come back, that's because you made that choice not to. So, what do you do when you don't come back? Those are what we're going to talk about in the next lesson, in the next session. So, we're going to talk about what do we do if we choose not to come back? Where do we go? And what are some of the certain circumstances that we have free will on this earth? Once we arrive here, we have free will. So sometimes not necessarily everything goes to plan. So we talk about, did I really plan this? To a certain extent, yes, you planned your life. You planned everything. Any hardships in childhood, etc., were planned. However, not everything is necessarily planned because there is free will. So we're going to talk about that in the next session. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to put them in the comment section and I'll get back to you with the answers in the following videos. If I have enough interest, I will do weekly videos on the death and dying process. If you liked this video, please give it a like. And if you want to share it, feel free so we can get the ball rolling and start teaching people that there's nothing to fear in death. There's nothing to fear in this life. you're going to be okay. You're okay here, and you're going to be okay over there. So, thank you for joining me, and I look forward to discussing the next chapter with you in episode 5 next week. Take care. Bye.